Hi. Well, I think often a tough day is when you've had a few knocks, and it can be really difficult to pick yourself up when you've been knocked down, especially when you work on your own, largely because a lot of us work from home now. What inspires me to get over that is to think about the good things that have happened, first of all, and secondly, probably to talk to another person, because if you talk to another person, a problem aired is a problem shared. So it always helps to, have at hand somebody just to keep things in perspective, because sometimes if you stew on it yourself, then that can be quite difficult. I often find talking to another woman can help as well, because obviously, there are some issues that you kind of think, actually, maybe I'm thinking, overthinking these things, and from a woman's perspective. So that's really how I would address those problems, and also to realise that you can sleep on these things as well, because quite often it might seem like a real disaster that day, but then the next day you've slept on it and you have a different perspective. So really thinking of the positive things, talking to someone and sleeping on it are my three top ways of getting over those difficult moments.
Okay, so my mantra is relentless positivity. I've even got it inscribed on my iPad pencil, just as a little reminder. Because there's always tough days, and sometimes you even have tough weeks where nothing seems to be going quite the way you wanted to. But I tend to look for a silver lining in situations. So, what are the positives that can come out of it? And even when it's a tough day, or there's some news that never feels good, or it's hard to put a positive spin on, I think there's always learning that you can take from that situation. So although it doesn't feel positive, you can take that learning and use it, so that you have a more constructive approach the following day.
And I think I've come to realize over the years that I'm inspired by the little things. I think sometimes when you're having a tough day, you get caught up in the moment, you forget about the simple things of being mindful, taking a breath, appreciating the weather outside, appreciating the fact that you are well, that you have food to eat, that you are warm, that you have support, looking at a child's smile. So I think when I'm having a tough day, I really try to reflect on those little things, a flower around me that would bring instant joy and not get caught up in the moment.
I think what inspires me most is the fact that we are here to support people who potentially wouldn't be able to access finance and would be living in a property that was not suiting their needs, whether that was because it was unsafe, or whether that was because it was cold, or whether that was just because they just weren't living in a property that they felt comfortable in. So for me, it's always thinking about the customer and making sure that we're here showing up every day to give it our best, really.
There are a lot of them when you're a small a small business founder. But what really inspires me is that with In Good Company, we're really trying to do something impactful. And it's the small businesses, the small, ethical, sustainable businesses that we're trying to support and amplify their impact. So whenever I'm having a tough day, I go and visit one of our businesses. I see the amazing work that they're doing, and it, yeah, really keeps me going.
I think one of the biggest challenges is feeling that your voice is a valid. It's the kind of imposter syndrome that you have when you are a female entrepreneur. And I know that there's a lot of people who aren't females that find the same sort of thing. But you're sitting in a room, your voice, you don't feel that you can speak up. You might not have a valid point, that you think is a valid point, but actually in retrospect it was. And I think that only comes a lot of the time with confidence. So I'm very aware of that and try and get everybody to speak. If I'm chairing a session, you need to notice when people aren't participating. But the other thing is just to develop your voice. And I was talking to somebody last week about sharing your ideas on paper sometimes, or written down. So for instance, over the years I've developed a blog, and I think back to my first attempts at that blog, and I was quite timid really about what other people would think and why they would be interested in my points of view. But over the years, I think with practice, you get to work out your perspective and maybe become a little bit more articulate about it, and realizing when other people come in and comment and say, oh, that was really useful, or you said what I was thinking, that really helps you to feel valid and to feel that is the case. Other instances have been where it's felt like the business has been really struggling, and sometimes that can be really difficult as well. As entrepreneurs, you have ups and downs as the business waxes and wanes. So for me, the key really is to talk to people, to get a perspective on it, and to realize that businesses go in cycles, and at the minute the financial state of the economy isn't great, so a lot of social enterprises are actually struggling. And you may fail at one thing, but then there may be other positive things that come out of that. So it's being able to develop a perspective on that, which is often easier said than done. But trying not to take things personally and realizing that actually there's a set of things that are happening here, being able to chat that through with other people and getting a perspective on that, I think would be my advice.
I've been around a while, and certainly when I first started getting drawn into social entrepreneurship, I found that there were lots and lots of networks that existed for my male counterparts. They were well-oiled and they're well-established, and there wasn't that kind of equivalent for women. There was a few small online networks, but not the kind of, directors clubs or those kinds of places that you could go and just easily network with other female entrepreneurs, or just generally as entrepreneurs, because it did seem a little bit like a closed shop. So I thought about it, and to overcome that for the future, I work with young female students to develop their social enterprise abilities and to build their confidence. So, made them do elevator pitches and took them to places, meetings with work partners, so that they could get used to doing the kind of networking that I envisaged. And I also did a master's degree, and I studied gender and why there was a difference perhaps between male and female students in the way that they approached enterprise. And that really helped inform me as to what I could do then to help the female students overcome those challenges, so that they would be more sort of excited by taking a risk rather than frightened of taking a risk. I think that was a big factor in it. I think there's a lot of pressure on young women to be a certain way, in the way that they look or in the way that they conduct business. And so that was really, really insightful work as well.
Challenges come from two areas: internally from yourself, and then externally from things that you can't control. So how I've overcome my internal challenges is to really have a belief in myself, that I can get things done, but also really understanding that I need to ask for help when I need it and look for support when I need it. Externally, oftentimes it's been challenging, for example, getting clients. And I think particularly as a Black woman entrepreneur, you have more obstacles to overcome. But again, I think it's about looking for like-minded individuals who will support you in really achieving your goals, and also just continuously understanding that rejection will come. That's part of life, but not letting that stop you, and just continually focusing on your goal and your aims, and to keep trying.
The challenges, I think, are mainly come from within. I think it is that piece that women tend to bear the cross of self-doubt more often than not, and trying to really see what other people see in you is sometimes a real challenge, and accepting that you potentially are as good as some people are telling you. So I think for me, the challenges have been that self-doubt that has held me back. And I've now reached the age where I think, well, actually, if I can't do it now, when will be the right time for me to do it? So I've become far more open towards trying all sorts of things and going, do you know what, that was good enough.
So I think whilst it's getting better, there is still a lot of unconscious bias against female founders. I think especially female tech founders. We get a lot of much more difficult questions than I think our male counterparts would get from investors, from partners, from different people. I often join conversations that I think are casual conversations. I get grilled on my business plan and income generation strategy and things. I think a lot more than men would. So that can be quite frustrating, because I don't think that people maybe know that they have that bias, and they think that we're not capable of doing something. But I think it's the way to combat that is we just always have the answer, and smile and explain stuff and just say, thank you for your interest. I've got it covered. I don't need to have that explained. It's my business. I understand. So yeah, I think it's just like combating it by being competent and knowing our business inside and out.
So as a small organisation, that can be quite a challenge. I think, again, it's about noticing where you might have some issues and positively acting on that particular area. So, seeing visibility of your team, how diverse is your team? We have a very female-led team, and a majority of females in the organisation. But we try and have people from a diverse range of backgrounds, and recruiting through things like LinkedIn helps that diversity. I think that's something that I've really experienced in the last few years. You get a much greater diversity of application if you recruit through LinkedIn, for instance, because people see it from all different perspectives, not just the same type of people. I think it's also important to think about your product as well and how it might land. So the work that we've done on the social enterprise mark in the disability field, understanding how that might apply to disabled-led employment organisation, learning about some of the barriers that perhaps you haven't really thought about. And I've been lucky to go through some diversity training as a result of various different boards. So, for instance, when I've been on the board of the Big Issue Invest Trust, we've done some diversity training. So challenging your own perceptions, but also to think about your board and how diverse that is as well. So when we've recently recruited, we've actively looked to ensure that, you know, we try and get a better range of views and experiences through our board, because I'm a firm believer that the more perspectives you have, the richer your business is, and you don't just come at it from one size fits all just because of your, you know, your own upbringing or your own experiences. So those are the sorts of things that I've found useful in terms of applying diversity and equality and equity in, you know, to the social enterprise mark.
So Help and Care's values are social justice, being innovative, personal and collaborative in the way that we work. So diversity, equity and inclusion principles are deeply embedded in the way our organisation operates and the services that we provide as well. I would say it's in the very marrow of our colleagues, you know, the way that they work. They play a key role in challenging and influencing policies and practices to make our communities better places. So generally for Help and Care, we're all proud of being an independent and impartial organisation that's not afraid of speaking out on behalf of the most vulnerable groups of society. So, you know, I think that's just part of who we are. It's not even something we're really that conscious of because it's so deeply embedded.
At Admitted Ltd, equity is a cornerstone and a foundation of the way in which the organization works, and I'm passionate about that, both from an internal perspective, but also for the clients with whom we work. Our clients also have to really promote, understand, value, and incorporate equity and diversity and inclusion in their principles as well. Otherwise, I find that it would be highly unlikely that we would work with them. I have a very open and inclusive and transparent working environment for my team. I have teammates of all different ethnicities and backgrounds and beliefs. And the most important thing, as I always say, is that people treat each other with respect, that everyone's voice is heard and listened to, and that we operate with the principle of everyone is starting from the same place, and therefore everyone is has the same opportunity and the same ability and the same voice.
So we very much look to include everyone within the organisation because we are serving every part of the community. So we look to provide training for our team members around looking at dementia, looking at equality, looking at fair wages, looking at every piece we can where it's about being fair. And we all know that life isn't fair, but if we can be fair, then that's what we should be focusing on. So it's about giving people the ability to be able to make the right decisions for the right people. So as we move further into the UK, out of the West Country, we're making sure that we include members of all communities as we sort of grow across the UK.
So within Good Company, we're really proud to buck the technology trend, and we are a majority female organization. We do have a male CTO, but he's very wonderful and and gets on board working with lots of women. So we try to be very inclusive in our hiring. We're a very small team, so that's not many people. But when we look at internships, we try to focus on ones that particularly offer opportunities to people that wouldn't necessarily always have opportunities like that and that experience. So we bring a lot of diversity in through internships. I am neurodiverse and manage a long-term condition, and our CTO is neurodiverse as well. So we talk a lot about mental and physical health in our organization. We try to work really flexibly. We encourage our employees, interns, everyone to bring themselves to work to talk about things they face in their day-to-day lives, how their brains or bodies might work differently in terms of, you know, needing rest, and we encourage naps and different things. But we really try to have an open and inclusive space and encourage all sorts of expressions and ideas coming into the company.